The atmosphere on set that afternoon was calm, almost too calm. Lights glowed softly across the stage. The crew moved with quiet precision. And Yoona's laughter filled the air like it always did. Nothing seemed out of place. Nothing hinted that within hours, the entire production would unravel into whispers, accusations, and disbelief. Started with a single comment, a sentence Yoona never intended to say out loud. But once those words escaped her lips, there was no taking them back. Chae-min was unprofessional. The set froze. Crew members exchanged uneasy glances. Sound technicians stopped mid-motion. And even the director's hand hovered in midair, unsure whether to call cut or keep filming. For years, fans had seen them as the perfect duo, warm, respectful, seamlessly in sync both on and off camera. But what Yoona said that day shattered that illusion in seconds. Her voice wasn't angry. It was tired, controlled. And that made it even more terrifying. No one knew what had pushed her to speak. No one knew what she had seen. But as the cameras kept rolling, something in Chae-min's eyes changed, a flicker of pain, maybe guilt, or something else entirely. Within hours, the story left the studio walls. By the next morning, every news outlet in Seoul was asking the same question. What really happened on set? The tension began with a sound barely audible above the hum of studio lights. A chair scraped against the floor. A microphone buzzed. And the set fell silent. What had been a bright, cheerful day of filming shifted into something brittle and uneasy. Yoona, who had always been known for her calm professionalism, sat rigid in her seat. Her co-star, Chae-min, stood across from her, his expression unreadable. Everyone could feel the electricity in the air. Something unscripted was about to happen. The director had called for a short break after several retakes of a particularly difficult emotional scene. Chemistry between the two stars had been off all morning. Yoona's delivery seemed distant, while Chae-min's tone carried an edge the cameras couldn't ignore. Whispers among the crew suggested that the tension wasn't just acting. Something real was brewing beneath the surface. Cameras rolled again. Yoona's eyes lifted toward Chae-min. There was no cue, no dialogue written for what came next. Her voice trembled slightly, but her words were sharp enough to cut through the air. "You've changed," she said. The line wasn't in the script. "You're not the same person you were when this started." The crew froze. The director's hand hovered over the stop button. But curiosity held him still. Chae-min blinked, caught off guard. "What are you talking about?" Yoona inhaled slowly. "You're unprofessional, Chae-min. I can't keep pretending it's fine." The room went silent. Every camera captured her face, steady, cold, unflinching. The sound engineer lowered his headset, staring in disbelief. Someone whispered, "Is this still part of the scene?" But no one answered. Chae-min didn't speak at first. His jaw tensed. His hand clenched into a fist by his side. Silence stretched, uncomfortable and heavy, until he finally said, "If you think honesty is unprofessional, then maybe you don't know what this job costs." His tone was low, calm, but his eyes burned. The director finally yelled cut. The spell broke. The crew exhaled, glancing between the two actors who now stood facing each other like strangers. Yoona turned away first, muttering something under her breath. She left the set before anyone could stop her. The moment spread faster than gossip ever had. One had been recording on a phone, 20 seconds of raw confrontation that leaked online within hours. The clip showed only Yoona's accusation and Chae-min's restrained reply. By evening, it had gone viral. Yoona calls out Chae-min for unprofessional behavior. One headline screamed. Crew stunned by confrontation, read another. Fans split immediately. Some accused Chae-min of arrogance and disrespect. Others said Yoona's tone had been rehearsed, even strategic. The next day, Yoona's agency released a short statement. Yoona spoke out in a moment of frustration. It said, she values professionalism and expects the same from her colleagues. The situation is being handled internally. Sources inside the production painted a different picture. Anonymous crew members told reporters that Chae-min had grown distant in recent weeks, skipping rehearsals, spending long hours alone between takes. He seemed distracted, one staffer said. Sometimes he'd stare at the floor and whisper his lines like he was arguing with someone who wasn't there. Another insider suggested that the problem wasn't attitude, it was exhaustion. He was pushing himself too hard, she said. Kept rewriting scenes, questioning direction. trying to make them more real. It rubbed people the wrong way. By midweek, both stars were trending worldwide. Shows debated whether Yoona had overstepped or whether she was bravely addressing a toxic co-star. Comment sections filled with speculation about secret feuds and unspoken rivalries. Then, a new piece of footage emerged. Works unedited behind-the-scenes feed leaked online, showing the minutes leading up to the confrontation. In the video, Chae-min was seen helping a lighting technician fix a broken stand while Yoona waited in makeup. When the director called action, she appeared impatient, tapping her fingers on the table. After several takes, she muttered, "He's making this too complicated," unaware her mic was still live. In the next clip, right before the now infamous accusation, a production assistant whispered something into Yoona's ear. The audio was muffled, but viewers could make out a phrase. They said, "He's rewriting your scene." That line changed everything. Suddenly, Yoona's outburst seemed less spontaneous and more provoked. Fans began to question whether someone had deliberately fueled the tension between them. Commentators speculated that internal politics were at play, directors frustrated by Chae-min's creative input, producers worried his growing popularity might overshadow the show's original vision. 3 days later, a journalist from Korea Inside published an exposé claiming that the unprofessional label had been whispered to Yoona for weeks by a senior producer who clashed with Chae-min over creative control. The article included anonymous testimonies from staff describing the pressure Yoona faced to remind him who's in charge. The story unfolded. Both actors vanished from public view. Filming halted indefinitely. The network announced a temporary suspension for review, but insiders revealed it was damage control. In the middle of the night, a new video appeared on social media, posted from an anonymous account. The title read, "The Truth They Won't Show You." The video showed footage from a rehearsal day 2 weeks before the confrontation. In it, Yoona and Chae-min were laughing together, relaxed, discussing changes to their script. "Let's make it real," Chae-min said. "If people believe it, they'll feel it." Yoona smiled and nodded. "That's what we do best." It cut to black with a line of text. They wanted conflict. They created it. By morning, the video had been deleted. Thousands had already saved and shared it. The internet turned on the producers. They staged drama for ratings. One top comment read, "They used them." Yoona returned to the public eye a week later. In a live press appearance, she addressed the incident head-on. "I said was wrong," she admitted. "I believed something that wasn't true. I should have talked to him instead of the cameras." Her voice shook. Chae-min didn't deserve that. Years later, Chae-min released a short statement of his own. "We all make mistakes," he said. "Some systems feed on them. I hope people stop confusing manipulation with entertainment." The truth spread quickly after that. Several crew members came forward confirming that producers had encouraged tension to add authenticity. Internal emails leaked, revealing instructions to let conflict play out naturally on camera. The production company faced public outrage, sponsors withdrew, and the show was quietly cancelled. In their final joint interview months later, Yoona and Chae-min sat side by side again. The air between them felt fragile but honest. "We learned something the hard way," Chae-min said softly. "When truth becomes content, no one is safe." Yoona nodded. "And when you lose control of your story, they'll sell the version that hurts the most." They smiled faintly at each other. The war behind them but the scars still visible. The cameras rolled, but this time, there were no scripts, no cues, just two people reclaiming their truth in a world that had turned it into spectacle. The story faded from headlines weeks later. For those who had seen it unfold, the lesson lingered. Fame could magnify a lie, but courage could end it. And sometimes, it took one accusation, one mistake, to reveal the machinery behind the glitter. Months passed after the storm that almost destroyed both of them. The show was gone. The producers had resigned in disgrace, and the network issued formal apologies that sounded more like rehearsed lines than real remorse. But for Yoona and Chae-min, the silence that followed was heavier than the noise that came before. They didn't speak to each other for weeks. Their agencies negotiated in the background. Fans fought online, and every time one of their names appeared on a headline, the other followed. Broken friendship, unforgiven betrayal, unscripted scandal. The public built stories faster than the truth could travel. One night, months later, A photographer caught them together at a quiet cafe in Gangnam. There was no stylist, no PR handler, no cameras besides his. They were just two people sitting face to face, surrounded by the sound of rain. Yoona looked tired but peaceful. Chae-min looked older, the edges of fame worn down by exhaustion. Said quietly, "We both let them write our story. Then we should write the ending ourselves." The following week, they announced a joint documentary, Set Free. No sponsors, no network. Two actors telling the truth in their own voices. It premiered online one late winter evening. The first scene was simple: a bare studio, two chairs, a single camera. Yoona spoke first. "Believed people who told me he was the problem. I didn't ask why they wanted me to think that. And followed, and I thought silence would protect me. It only protected them." The documentary showed unreleased footage, emails, testimonies from other performers who had been pressured to create conflict for entertainment. It wasn't just about them anymore, it was about everyone forced to trade their dignity for a scene. When it ended, there was no applause, no music. Just black screen and one final line. "Behind every camera, there's a choice, to stay silent, or to speak." The impact was immediate. Networks scrambled to implement new guidelines for on-set behavior, production transparency, and actor rights. Younger performers called it a turning point. Critics called it a quiet revolution. Yoona and Chae-min didn't attend any award shows or interviews afterward. They didn't need to. The work spoke for them. Later, both returned to acting, separately, but stronger. In a rare magazine feature, asked about forgiveness, Yoona smiled faintly. "Forgiveness isn't about forgetting," she said. "It's about not letting one moment define who we are forever." Interviewer turned to Chae-min. He looked out the window before answering. "People still ask if we're friends. The truth is, we went through something no one else can understand. That's a bond, whether we talk about it or not." At the end of the article, the writer described them leaving the studio in silence, walking in opposite directions down the same road, and somewhere in the city that once tore their names apart. Boards still flashed with other faces, other shows, other headlines chasing the next scandal. But for those who remembered what happened, one image endured: Yoona standing in a storm of lights, her voice steady, Chae-min refusing to look away. As the moment the script ended, and the truth began. And the story of Yoona and Chae-min became more than just another piece of entertainment gossip. Into a reflection of something far larger: how easy it is for truth to be distorted under the spotlight. How quickly compassion disappears when the world demands drama. What began as an accusation ended as a revelation, that behind every perfect scene lies a price. And sometimes the only way to stay human is to stop performing. We both learned, painfully and publicly, that silence can be weaponized just as easily as words. They also proved that redemption is possible when courage outweighs fear. Their names, once dragged through endless speculation, now stand for something quieter yet stronger: integrity. The cameras have long stopped rolling. One sentence still echoes: "Behind every camera, there's a choice, to stay silent, or to speak." This story is dedicated to those who choose honesty over convenience, who speak even when their voices shake. Countless artists, staff, and unseen souls who build their dreams beneath blinding lights. May you never forget that your truth matters more than any script. And to every reader who followed this story until the final line, thank you for caring enough to see beyond the rumor. Because sometimes, the bravest act in show business is telling what really happened.